to Carl DeGregorio's Death Session 37. 37, moving into life after injury. Big milestone for my health or my walking is that I went around the block. Now, mind you, I had a walking routine of, at least 3 miles a day, very vast distances. And so, not being able to do that for the last 4 or 5 months, the walk around the block is a big step, many little steps, and very thrilled about that. And with that brings a little pain and a little swelling, and I'm not walking great, but I guess that's the next phase of the PT I'm going to be doing, and the next phase of ultimately being able to get back to everything normal. Maybe nothing normal again, but everything normal as far as pushing limits and not being in that injured state. And I am a little bit out of loss for theme today, and that's okay. I've been working on trying to clear some habits and to wean out of sort of this sort of injured state. Getting mobility back has kind of coincided with something I'm noticing in my life. My apartment complex is having what they call a retrofit. So they're doing this sort of rebar retrofit, and I can't park in my spot. So there is this energy going to having to find parking in the neighborhood, which isn't so bad. Thankfully, it's not one of these crazy neighborhoods that you could have in New York or LA, like Koreatown or Hollywood. And it's permitted, so that minimizes the, amount of people have to have a residency to park. So that helps. But I was panicked at first because of a leg injury when I got the news, and now I can walk, so it's not a big deal. But what happens is this covetousness that comes with wanting the closer to your door space on the street. You can just see that some people with 2 cars are just spending a lot of their time trying to, make it so they don't have to move the car on alternate side of the street or not have to walk around the corner. And that's a consideration for me because of, my limping, but thankfully we're better before it happens. And it's just one of those territorial things, and that sort of thing that happens to us that, if you vacate a spot to go do an errand, you get pissed when you come back and someone took your spot. It's that weird feeling of possessiveness over something you don't own, something that's not yours, something you can't control. And, now you're starting to familiarize yourself with the neighbors' cars and where their preferences are, and they're all gunning for the same spots. And if it's the same car that gets your spot after you dropped your girlfriend home at night, you're pissed, And I guess that is that's a mild form of what can, occur on massive scales, where people get territorial, where people get possessive over things. That's the West Side Story template, or maybe as far back as the Capulets and Montagues, where people think they own stuff or they protect turf. And everybody assumes that in the macro that they aren't as bad as those territorial gangs and feuding families. But, honestly, we're all susceptible. And I guess that's a theme I'm picking up on from last week is, noticing, and I got to ward against the fact that it might be, I'm in this effort to feel better in general, spiritually, mood-wise, artistically, all these things. In those efforts, I also have to be sure that my perfectionism isn't creeping in to where I'm going to try to eradicate like any of the human frailties of personality or I should not be harping on myself for feeling the same things we all kind of feel, that sort of collective consciousness that, you've heard about, Jung talk about. So I am dwelling on the parts of myself that in my attempts, you don't want to get that idea that because of the work you're doing that you're past it. It's all in process. I spoke last week about transitions, and so if I'm transitioning from old patterns to new patterns, new ways of thinking, new boundaries, those kind of things. If I'm transitioning, I have to make sure that I also don't transition into, either over worrying about undesirable traits that, you hope to minimize. But I point things out as things I notice myself. So when I say people get territorial about parking spaces, I'm talking about myself. And in that realm of how do you stay present to the point of you don't appreciate the ability to take your walks and to bolt out the door, to hit the neighborhood on foot and just kind of get your, piece on foot. You don't start appreciating that until you can't do it. And how do you live just appreciative all the time of the many blessings rather than having to have them taken away? And similarly, having a parking space assigned to you for you only, access to and from that you can come and go as you please, having that taken away, then you then appreciate it. And even though the inconvenience of parking, these are really first world issues, but those are just little winks at the temporal nature of things, that you don't really own anything. Even if you bought a house, until you pay it all off, the bank owns it, and you still got to pay property taxes. And so there are financial quote unquote instruments that make a mortgage more desirable than a heavy rent, but depending on your market, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And all of it is, just fighting the conventional wisdoms. And I guess where I'm at, if some of the things that I have experienced in my life, or some of the things that have hurt my feelings, whatever, I don't want to get heavy, but I am trying to get back into trusting instincts, and that they say is the rub of modern living, is that our instincts become dulled to convenience, or dulled by convenience. And so while I don't want to go full mountain man, I'm thinking more about like directions to go, places to visit, things to acquire in terms of knowledge, transitions into different ways of living, even if the short fix is to sort of have a job, but I'd like to be more free. And so to trust instincts about these things. So, and that perfectionism I'm talking about, where I'm saying, you get territorial because you got to find parking spaces. The other part is you get sedentary because I got a good parking space, as if you own it, or you don't want anyone else to take it from you. And you curtail your activities based on the inconvenience of losing the parking space. But the perfectionism I'm talking about could also be, a way to stall a decision, to quell the needs that you have, or to distract yourself with minutia toward a goal with the show. Like I've been getting into this. I've been getting into this death session as a little bit of a better spin, a little bit more something I'm looking forward to every week. And the original goal, and things can transition. This could transition into a vlog or a solo pod or whatever the heck you call it. But it was initially just a way to keep myself on task. Something I've done so far for the show, and I'm toying again with another topic, another title too, but I've created a playlist for the first read through. I know that I will not ultimately be able to use the songs that I need because of clearances, and but in the development stage, I'm trying to conjure the time travel that a song can give you. And since it's not for profit and it's just for the workshopping, I'm going to use the actual songs of the day that I need, and the ones that I would ultimately not be able to clear when I get the chance to do it for real presentation or real ticket buying. I don't know that there are any workarounds other than getting in touch with every artist and writing the greatest letter of this song is so important. I mean, that would be an insane endeavor. And I don't know if you noticed, but these artists selling their catalogs, like Bob Dylan and Neil Young and all these legacy catalog artists selling their catalog, it's for hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. That just goes to show you where that's heading. And if you think you could appeal to Sony Music Group with a little feel-good story about what this song means to you, like you once could maybe write to Kenny Loggins, you're not going to get, that's going to fall on deaf ears because they've put the money down. But can you imagine investing $200 million? That means the exponential growth of owning that catalog and being able to sell diapers with, songs that used to be cleared, The Who, things like that. It's a very brave new world. So I understand that. But the having the playlist so that I can have like a cue to cue, and when I read for a few friends, I think I'll have a little production, a little idea of where those songs or where those moments in the show are. I'll have done a little pre-production so that it's not simply just a reading. I will have a limited props, things like that, just to get through it so that I'm not torturing people with like, just listen to me read, you know what I'm saying? Again, we've all been there for play readings and screenplay readings, table reads, but it's a very different ball game. It feels like for me to be the only one on stage and asking for that attention. And so, I want to put something into it. Also with the playlist, if I then go into a production where today now a lot of people would say, it's not musicianship, but the beauty of today is with GarageBand and the like, I could find a SoundCloud kind of artist with that playlist and with the script. And if I could get someone to come to a rehearsal or a read through, they'll know what I'm getting at with those cues. And there could be a way to create original songs or original interstitial music to conjure those songs in spirit, but not in plagiaristic ways. And so that's why it's important that I use these songs. And the funny thing is, like, when I go down the playlist, it's like when you're any kind of like music head, and like I am and have been and was certainly back in the day, your playlists are essentially your mixtape. And back then, your mix CD or your mixtape were stuff you owned and songs that you had to share. But now that everything is available, this playlist would be almost an embarrassment to that sensibility I used to have of being a music snob, because I'm going for the memory of the era and the popular songs. And so it wouldn't be my choice of song, but they were so ubiquitous on the radio, or they were the kind of things that were played at a high school dance. They're not going to play Echo and the Bunnymen at a high school dance because that's the deep cut for the era. So while I would want to show off the headiness of my musical taste as a young person, which was always me trying to perform at precociousness or perform at having sophistication beyond my years, you couldn't escape. And then you become more fond of the more popular songs of your era and of the day today, So, that's an interesting notion that I'm playing around with. And I've always said that, and what I'm really most afraid of with the show, and I want to start saying what I'm really most excited about rather than afraid, but what I'm really most jazzed about, or like that energy I talked about, this little thing that's got me. I've always said, and a friend of mine has always reminded me that My theory is that if a song is embarrassing to be caught singing along to, or if a song is embarrassing to be caught dancing to, or if you were back in the day of like the record store, if you had a CD that you kind of bought and wanted to mix it in the pile so that nobody really caught you buying it, but you just kind of had an earworm of a song, back in the days of singles. I mean, I remember it wasn't even the big hit. It was their second album, but like Color Me Bad had a second album. Like, I'm the only cat that bought the second album, but like there was a Quincy Jones produced track on the second album. I bought the single, you know what I'm saying? And it was, you didn't want to get caught, but I didn't want to get busted jamming out to it, but I had to have that track, And there was a Stevie B song that was just an earwormy song. And so, but I stopped, I don't know, at some point in my late 20s, I just sort of said, fuck it, if it's a banger, it's a banger. And I think that that's the prevailing thing in the culture today. But, and it's the Shazam thing is where I really would find my organic, where I really am moved by just the music. And because I put Shazam on when I hear something that's just I don't know and I want to have it. And then the beauty of that is that it saves this list. And I like a lot of electronic stuff, and I like a lot of moody stuff, and I like, stuff that evokes emotion and things like that. But the idea that I'm writing a show that honestly is that sort of inner thought that's embarrassing to share. I think that's where the greatest hope for connecting with an audience is. It lies in the fact that am I the only one? Is this Sharon? Is this TMI? Like the whole thing, it's a borderline. It's a high wire act of, will this connect because it means something to me? It must mean something. If it means something to me, it'll mean something to somebody else. That's the general rule you apply to the bravery it takes to share your art. But there is a lot I'm trying to say in the show that is quote unquote hard to admit to, or a vulnerable takes on a few things that happened in my life and some embarrassing moments and things like that. And while maybe that is a sort of a emotional exhibitionism, or it is really that ethos of like, if it's, and the song I used to, it bared out to be, what's the word? It bared out to be agreed upon. Like there was a song in the 90s, Semi-Charmed Kind of Life, that Third Eye Blind song, not like the kind of band that would be in my collection. I went against the grain of what Rolling Stone was saying was hip, but like the part of the song, and I didn't know at the time till it was examined and till blogs told you it was about a guy like hitting the meth pipe. I didn't, and I bumped again, and then I bumped again. Like I didn't know it was about that, but there is this breakdown in the song where he goes, I believe in the sand beneath my toes. And it's like this, like I've had to rehearse with bands and to get ready for shows. I wrote a song with a buddy, and that means that dude was in a rehearsal studio and they were playing some chords, and he came in with a notebook and he said, okay, I got something. I don't know what this is. And he has to open his mouth to sing, which is a vulnerable place to be, and set it to a tune, which he's humming along in his imagination. And he goes, I believe in the sand beneath my toes. And it's like, it's corny and embarrassing, but that's the part of the song that got me. And then it's the doot doot doot, and then they used it in every fucking movie trailer and every sort of exuberant rom-com, or every sort of exuberant water pistol scene in a movie. That was the song of the era. But I think it did come from this sort of vulnerability, and so that's where I'm kind of going with my show and with the song choice in the playlist, that ultimately will have to be scrapped unless I get this thing to such a level that the budget is there to clear the songs. You know what I'm saying? So that's where I'm at with that, and that felt good. First, I had to comb through the script to find out the songs. I had to then, it's a fun little busy work, and it's on its way to being, productive and for a purpose, and it's starting to feel good. And for that, again, I am glad to get to these desk sessions with energy. And what I've noticed from when I have to watch them back to find a clip, I feel doing them and speaking these that I am revved up, that I am amped, that I am firing a little bit too, that if someone were watching this, they'd be like, calm down, calm down, calm down. But what I've learned the hard way, and my brother, who worked in television, told me, kind of after the fact, but when I did a television show, I did a panel on a show, and what I noticed when I watched these back is that I actually look kind of calm and relaxed and kind of in the pocket. But as I sit here, I am firing energy and trying to really vocalize, a lot of vocal variety, I'm sitting up, I got the lights, I'm trying to really transmute and translate to you that I'm not just rambling, I'm trying to put thoughts together and make it interesting with the static shot and all that. And what you learn is that's how it comes across as kind of calm and mellow to the viewer. And, that kind of energy is what I kind of failed to have when I was paneling, because I didn't know you have to kind of go above to look normal on TV, on live TV, on camera, on, in any performance. The idea that the character is calm doesn't mean the actor is particularly calm, because you have to have that, that fire in the belly. And that, thinking fast and slow at the same time, So that's something I've noticed about, energy and putting it out there. And so it'll be interesting to see, the marathon of doing a one-man show is with one performer is how are you going to have the peaks and valleys and a variety of energy, and, that'll be exciting, because the one thing we don't have here is I don't have feedback. And that's the problem, I think, with any of these online things that are solo, or is that there's no feed. Even with Zoom, you're getting some feedback. Someone might nod, a smile, a stupid emoji in the chat, which usually distracts you, like I'm distracted right now that a text came in. But when the beauty and a lot of the theme of the show, which is hard to really explain, and the theme of the show is that, and it's kind of an odd writing assignment, because it won't be complete until it's presented, because a lot of what I say in the show is this is happening now. You and I, meaning you and the audience, and me and the audience, I and the audience, we are together here. And that is like a reiterated theme. And there'll be these pauses where I'm on a jag and I'm telling a story, and I'm hopefully transporting you back to a time in my life in the past and giving that picture and getting these words said. And yet I have to remind people that this is happening now, that this is the most, thank you so much for being a part of this audience. And I don't know that that's the way to do it. I don't know if that will be, we're just going to have to see. You know what I mean? And if there's anything that will counteract the march of technology, it will be that these sort of spiritual, if you notice, festivals are at a high demand and more frequent. These mega tours, the money for tickets for live performances are up, and stand-up has obviously had a renaissance for the live experience, and it's touring and all of that. And I want to get back to that, but I want it to be a little more scripted and thematic, and that's hence the one-man show. But we'll see if that muscle is atrophied in the audience. It's definitely atrophied in me, and that's my biggest trepidation is, can I hold attention? Today, today you're on 3 screens sometimes. You got your laptop, you got the game on, you got your laptop going on your lap, and if someone's calling you on your phone, that's 3 screens. So what's going to hold your attention? And I guess that's the incredible litmus test of the material, right? Is I would imagine and hope and pray that the people in my first few workshop readings will fucking silence their phones and stuff and won't be itching and I'm not going to have a ton of young people who can't be off the phone, but that's what you're competing with. And that's the big fear, that my attention span has been whittled down. And I just wonder, anyway. And so vis-a-vis how things, I say vis-a-vis a lot. It's been an okay week. Like I said, I'm making progress with the foot. It's the first week without any assistance, no cane, no boot, no ankle brace. And now this sort of layoff has, we're seeing the end. It's bringing a new tension to my thinking. And I don't know if that's because I just I'm unable to comfort myself and say to myself that a partial tear of a tendon in your ankle foot is no joke, and healing from it and recuperating in and of itself is plenty to do. I kind of got that false sense of when I got my real estate license during the lockdown, that kind of effort is what you do with these chunks of downtime. But if there's a spiritual and emotional component to body-mind connection in my ankle getting effed up, maybe I just needed the break and was unable to get it by, sort of an asking way, or I wasn't able to get it in the few, the days off I could manifest. Maybe I just needed to regroup, and, I'm sure that's right. And in fact, I did have to regroup physically. So now hopefully there's some insights. So maybe people, I didn't get a second degree while I was laid up in 4 months, but I'm feeling better, and I hope I can take some of this turning of the tide emotionally into going back into having to maybe work in a way that I don't want to. Ultimately, I do know that the freedom I seek is a less structured existence, or a structure that is, the tracks are laid by me, and I don't know what that will be. I do know that between auditions, between doing this, between cooking and not so much cleaning, but definitely cooking, and managing a life and a house and a relationship, that there's plenty to do in a day. That the job is, it's actually an impediment to the way I want to live, because I want my job to be the constant auditioning for that once in a while gig that gets you to the next level, the strategizing, the making sure my back of the house casting stuff is up to, I've been stalking a job in a show in New York, and all of that is plenty of things to do. And so hopefully I will find a way to transition into a more amorphous, is that right? Amoeba-like existence, where I'm able to still keep an income, but sort of own my day, own my time. Because like that parking space on public land, I don't own much, and I don't own that parking space, and I shouldn't really covet it and cling to it. And that's kind of the full circle kind of metaphor here today, is that all you really own is your heart, soul, and your intention, and your care and concern for those in your life. And so I'm going to have to let go. And if I have to go somewhere, I'll just get in the car and watch some fucking prick get my parking space until it's all done, and release. And I'll just end on a happy note. Last night around midnight, I dropped my girlfriend home, and I had the best spot. I had the one we're all gunning for, right there, closest to the building, and I had to give it up to take her home. And she was joking, like, you want to just let me out here and shit. And I'm like, "Roar!" And I came whipping back, and I'm not speeding, but I'm just like, I want that spot to be there. And sure enough, it was. So once in a while, when you quote unquote let go and you're willing to say to your girl, I'll take you, you're not taking an Uber because I'm going to get you home. And even if I have to walk around the block, I'll do that. And I can now because I healed myself. You know, I think that that's a micro achievement, or a micro release, or a micro glimmer. And so maybe that's progress, and maybe that's what the little steps around the block with my foot, being able to manage more steps, is this next step is the music for my show, and the ultimate committing to performing the show, at least to a few friends for some feedback. So I think that gets me through 37. No big deal on 37. Oh, that's 10 if you add it up. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I don't know if the significance of 10, it's an even number. It's a unit of measurement. Decimate refers to, people say, I decimated my enemy. Means, well, that means you just fucked them up in a factor of 10. It didn't, you didn't wipe them. When you mean wipe them out, that's not decimating. But we are no longer going to really quibble over these definitions if everybody's going to put shit into a fucking chat bot. But hopefully there is enough energy coming this way. While it's not feedback from you, it's meant to be a reach out. And I hopefully will be reaching out more in the next few months with my show, with my efforts, with my acting, with my writing, with everything. I'm reaching out, and I thank you for your attention on this Session 37. Peace.